Hello internet friends, welcome to another painting project. My name is Nate Miller. I'm a Bob Ross certified instructor here at Extravagant Studios in Pemberville, Ohio. So I was thinking, what's the main thing that people want to learn to paint when it comes to Bob Ross? And I came to the conclusion that that's actually three different things: clouds, mountains, and trees. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. This is going to be a beginner-friendly tutorial, and I'm going to teach you how to paint an almighty mountain, a couple of happy trees. So, if you're ready, I think I'm ready, why don't you join me up at the canvas, and I'll show you what we got going on. Alright, so this is a 16 by 20 inch canvas, and it's already been covered with Bob's liquid white. So let's talk about Bob's liquid white here. This is Bob's liquid white. You need a jar of this if you want to paint like Bob Ross. I can't stress this enough. You absolutely need liquid white if you want to paint like Bob Ross. It is absolutely necessary. And when you get yourself a jar of liquid white, shake it up real good. Make sure that it is well mixed. And just shake it up real good, and then apply a very thin coat to your canvas. It doesn't take a lot of this liquid white at all to cover a canvas. So canvas is covered. We're going to use a couple of Bob's brushes, and we'll put these brushes to work today. Like I said, we'll do a big almighty mountain, a couple of happy clouds, a couple of happy trees, and just have a good time. So, if you guys are ready, I think I am ready. We'll go ahead and get started here. So, these are the colors we're working with today, and before I forget, like I did almost the last painting project, I'm going to go ahead and put the colors up on the screen for you so you can see exactly which colors I'm using today, in case you want to paint along with me or try this painting project out for yourself. So those are the colors. I'm going to go ahead and pick up my Bob Ross 1-inch brush, and I'm going to go right into a little bit of phthalo blue. So just pull a small amount of paint away from the pile and then firmly tap the bristles into that little bit of paint. Once again, this canvas has already been covered with liquid white, so when we apply this phthalo blue, it'll just mix nicely for us. Mix nicely. Maybe just a little bit more color on my brush. I got a wobbly easel today. Got a wobbly easel. I'm gonna put my leg up here on the stand just so it doesn't move too much. So I'm just using little X strokes, and then we're just gonna put in a real easy basic sky today. Work it down, work it down. I'll stop about maybe midway. And that blue color continuously mixes with the liquid white. Get a little bit more phthalo blue. This blue continuously mixes with the liquid white, and it will naturally get darker as it comes down towards the middle, towards what will be the horizon. And that it just naturally works like that. It's nice. Okay, let's take a little bit more phthalo blue and let's paint in our water. We're gonna have a little bit of water in this painting. I'm gonna take my brush, start on the outside edge, pull in towards the center, push down and release, keeping those strokes as level as you can. As level as you can. In other words, you don't want a stroke to go down at an angle. See how off that looks? Very off-putting. Make sure these strokes are basically level. Basically level. Can't stress that enough. Or like you saw, your water's going to be very lopsided. It'll really bother you. Okay, pulling in, outside in. Pull it in. Very, very simple background that you can do. I'm going to take my 2-inch brush. This is the same brush I used to apply my liquid white in the beginning. Let's start at the base of the sky, and I'll start to blend up into the darker blues. There we go. And I'm basically just looking to get rid of any obvious brush strokes there. On the bottom, I'm just going to go back and forth, smooth out the water. Something like that. Had a little hair. Something like that. Let's switch over to a fan brush. I'm going to go right into a little titanium white. A little bit of white. Load that fan brush nice and full of white. And let's make a little cloud. We said we were going to do some clouds today, so I'm going to take the corner of my fan brush and make tight little circles. Tight circles. Just using the corner here. And I'm just going to scrub in the basic little shape of a cloud. The main thing you want to concern yourself with is make sure you keep this brush moving. So in other words, you don't want to just stay and grind in one area, or you'll end up with big cotton balls. We're not looking for that. We're not looking for cotton balls. See how I'm keeping this brush moving? And this cloud can really go wherever you want it. Maybe it goes right up off the canvas. See, clouds are, like Bob used to say, clouds are very free things in nature. So don't be afraid of making a wrong cloud. There's no such thing. There's absolutely no such thing as a wrong cloud. Let's take a 2-inch brush, knock off some of that excess paint. I'm going to hold it like so I'm using just the top portion of this brush. And I'll start to kind of stir up the cloud, just the bottom. See how I'm not really touching the tops? Stir this cloud up. Stir them up. Tight little circles again. Stir it up. Hold your brush kind of angled towards the floor. Very lightly, I'll just fluff them. Barely touching, barely touching. Just caress it, as Bob would say, caress it. Very gently go across, one hair and some air. Get that hair off there. There we go. Ah, he's back. He's back. Those hairs, I'll tell you, those hairs can be annoying. Bob's brushes like to shed, especially if you've gotten a lot of mileage out of one of Bob's brushes. The more you put it to work, the more it seems to shed. Let's do another little cloud while we got some time. Same thing, just kind of scrub it in. Think of painting these clouds like you're scrubbing them in. And remember, there's no such thing as a wrong cloud. No such thing. As long as you keep that brush moving. Keep them moving. Something like that. Same brush, 2-inch. Wind up the base of the cloud, stir it up. Give them a little fluff, a little love. Very gently go across. And because Bob's paint is nice and dry and firm, when you do this real lightly, you're not gonna mush the paint all over the canvas. Bob's paint's very dry and firm so that you can go over top of it like that without becoming a mud mixer. So if you're ever having problems with the Bob Ross technique, I'd say the first thing you need to do is check your paint. Depending on the brand of paint you're using, it might not be something you are doing wrong. You might be doing the technique correctly, but your equipment, your paint is not giving you any help there, if that makes sense. So if you're having problems with any of these techniques I'm showing you up here, check your paint first. because it could be the consistency of your paint, could be a cheap brand of paint you're using. Honestly, the best brand to use for this technique is the Bob Ross paints. Okay, so I took a palette knife and I took a little bit of white and a little bit of mountain mixture. Little white and a little mountain mixture. Mix those together. Let's make a big old mountain. Pull that paint out real flat with the knife. Place your blade down, cut across, pick it up, you get that little roll of paint. Let's make a mountain. I'm gonna go a little left of center. Push this color firmly into the canvas. Act like you're trying to push it right through the canvas. And all I'm concerned with is that nice outside edge. Don't care about nothing else. Just that nice outside basic shape of a mountain up here. But again, push this color into the canvas. Push it into the canvas. And when you're painting mountains like this palette knife is not a paintbrush. It's more or less like a spatula or a big old putty knife. So think of these mountains when you're doing this. Think of it as you're kind of sculpting out your mountain shape. Sculpt it out. This knife is kind of like an extension of your hand. Think of it like that. Scrape off that excess paint in there. And then let's take a 1-inch brush and we're going to blend out this mountain. So I drop the handle down, place the bristles almost right up to that outside edge. Grab it, pull it. Shoo, comes right on down. Because of that fantastic liquid white, we can move color on the canvas. It'll blend for you. So grab it, pull it. Everything on the left goes down to the left. Everything on the right goes down to the right. And just like that, you got a little basic mountain shape in there. It's fun and it works. Take a little 2-inch brush, just kind of X out the bottom of that mountain there, so it's nice and misty at the base of the mountain. Got a basic mountain shape there. I'm going to take my palette knife. Let's go into titanium white. Let's put some beautiful, beautiful highlights on this mountain. I left just a little bit of that mountain mixture color on my blade so that when you mix it with the white, it's going to kind of naturally turn into a kind of a grayish color. Cut off a roll of paint. Should have a little roll of paint on the knife about the width of a wet spaghetti noodle, give or take. I'm going to come right up over the outside edge with this knife. Right up over the outside edge and no pressure. Just let that paint break. No pressure. This is similar to, I say this is similar to doing yoga. You ever done yoga? Me neither. But if you have, it's very similar to yoga, or what I imagine yoga to be like. Relax, enjoy, center yourself, all that stuff. We're not looking down on people who do yoga, I'm just saying this is similar to relaxing. Relax, enjoy, relax your wrist. I don't want to see your tendons popping out in your wrist when you do this. This should be very gentle. And it should make you happy. I know you've heard Bob say it, I'll say it. Should make you happy. Painting should make you happy. Should relax you. Okay. Just taking roll of paint, and each little highlight I do here, I reload that knife. Sometimes I see students try to do all these highlights with just one roll of paint, and it does not work for them. Every time you put in a highlight, you need to reload that knife. Let's take some titanium white on the palette knife and a little bit of blue, not much blue, more white than blue, and I'll mix those two together so I get kind of a sky blue color, maybe just a bit more blue. That's nice. That's nice. Good shadow color for our mountain. You always want to make sure you want to make sure that your shadow color is not too close to your highlight color, or you're not going to have this beautiful contrast you get when you put in the shadows. Make sure your shadows are not too close to your highlight color. So a little blue, a little bit of white, and I'm just kind of sneaking in to these little areas in my mountain. All the shadows go down in the opposite direction. They just sneak right into these little pockets. See how maybe those come together there? That's fun. That is fun. You start to get excited when you get a hang of the Bob Ross technique. It makes you excited to see it work for you. And it will work for you. It will work for you. It takes just a little practice, just like everything else. But once it works for you, you can't stop. That's what happened to me. It started to work for me so well, and I just ran with it. I ran with it. Didn't look back. And then sooner or later, my mom says, "Nate, you know you can teach this to people?" And I said, "What? Really?" She said, "Uh-huh. Yeah, you can." And here we are, 6 years later. All right. Little shadow there. Something like that. Yeah, you can just make all kinds of pretty little mountains up here. I'm going to use the small side of my knife to get into little areas that I want accented. Something like that. Mountains take practice, but they are, like I said, they're the thing that beginners want to learn how to paint. Big old almighty mountains. Let's take a 2-inch brush. At the base of this mountain, I'll gently tap, following the angle of this mountain. Very gentle. I'll lift up, blend out the base. A little bit in here, a little bit over here. And again, that's just going to give you a little misty appearance at the base of your mountain. But practice these mountains. Like Bob used to tell us, you could take a whole canvas and just paint mountains all day. Paint mountains all day. It's a wonderful way to practice. Don't even have to necessarily do a whole painting. Just paint a mountain, scrape it off, do it again, scrape it off, do it again. Wonderful way to practice. Let's have some foothills at the base of that mountain. I'm going to take that mountain color, my shadow color, mix it up. Let's throw a little bit of Van Dyke Brown and a little bit of sap green into that mix. And we're going to get kind of an olive green, dirty green color. Good one, good color to use for foothills. Take a 1-inch brush, load that, and then watch here. See if I can get a good shot. On one side of this brush, push it back into the paint. Push it back into the paint. I'm sorry, I'm a dork. There we go. One side of the brush, pushed it back into the paint. Let's just make a couple little foothills here. Just right at the base of this mountain, tap in some footy hills. Now, the main subject of this painting is, of course, the mountain, but I want to show you how you can paint some happy trees in here too. So the foothills are not all too important. but we do want something back here. But I'm just kind of tapping in basic little foothills. And I'm not really worried about the bottom of these foothills. I'm just worried about the tops. You'll see why here in a second. Take your 1-inch brush, just pull up tiny little hairs. Make it look like bunches and bunches and bunches and bunches and bunches of little evergreen trees way off in the distance. Yes. Okay. Let's take a 2-inch brush. We're going to fix up the bottom here. That bottom looks rough. Take the 2-inch brush, grab a little bit of that color, pull it straight down into your water, and see how that makes reflections? Just like that. Gently go across, and we got some reflections. Now you can see we got some water down there. Got a little water. And if you want to make your reflections just a bit darker, get that 2-inch brush, tap it into a little bit of that Foothill color. Go ahead and darken up your reflections. Just so they're nice and they're strong reflections. Something like that. Knock off some of that excess paint. Very gently go across. Gives it that nice watery, shimmery effect. Got a little paint booger there. Gently go across. Beautiful, easy, fun, and you can do it. Let's take a palette knife. I'll go into a little white. And I'm going to use actually the small edge of this knife to just scratch in a little water line back here. Now the water line is more or less a placeholder so that people will look at your painting and they'll see this water line and they'll say, oh, okay, that's the water, those are the trees. See how that works? Just will separate the water from the trees. All right, let's do some happy trees. Speaking of trees, let's do some happy ones. I'm gonna take that Foothill color and I'm gonna take a big old wad of mountain mixture, mix that up into a big honkin' pile of paint. Big honkin' pile. So it's mountain mixture and that Foothill trees, that color. Let's take a clean fan brush. Got a clean fan brush. And I'm gonna load that fan brush absurdly full of paint. Both sides of the brush. This is so important. When you're doing these big trees, happy trees, load that brush full. Don't be stingy. Don't be stingy with your paint. Don't be stingy. Load it full. You need a lot of paint in this brush to make it work. You can do the wiggle method where you see how I'm wiggling that brush back and forth on one side then the other. Pull it through, sharpen it. Lots of paint in the brush. I'm going to tap in a little tree trunk. Just tap. Something like that. That's the center of your tree. Get your bearings. Reload the brush. Lots of paint. Lots of paint. On one side, one corner of the brush, let's start to put some branches up top. Just making a couple marks. And then as you work down this tree, you hit the middle, go to the left, go to the right. Let's do that again. Middle, left to the right. 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 Sounds like a cadence, right? Ha ha. Sounds like a cadence. Sounds like it might be a technique. I don't know. Maybe. Let's do that again. These trees are it's muscle memory. That's all it is. Muscle memory. Got to do them over and over and over. Tap in that tree trunk. Tap in the tree trunk, get the center, reload the brush, lots of paint. Just the corner, make a mark. That's the top branch. Make a mark or two below them. And then as you work down the tree, you'll hit the middle, go down to the left, to the right. Middle, left, the right. And that, what I did in that first, this is just that sped up. Left, middle, middle, left, right. I think a lady in one of Bob's classes called them a Z tree, Z trees, because it is kind of like you're painting the letter Z. Let's do another little tree right here. But you do need a lot of paint in this brush to make it work. You need a lot of paint in that brush. You can always extend a tree. Say you weren't happy with that tree. I'm not really happy with him, so let's extend him. You can go right over top. Right over top of him. And just make them bigger. Alright, on the bottom here, those trees are just kind of floating in the water. On the bottom, I'm going to take my 1-inch brush, a clean 1-inch brush. I'm going to go into that same dark color, load it, and then tap it. Let's just make a big mess down here. These are going to be some bushes. So I'm just going to clunk in some bushes, just tap them in. And we're actually going to fill up this whole bottom corner with dark. We'll come back and separate it all with highlights. Right now, I just want to get the dark in. I know, you're probably thinking, geez, geez, that looks awful. I had a lady in class say that to me once. I was doing something like this, putting in the darks, and I don't think she understood that we were gonna make it look, we're gonna do more with it. But I did something like this where I just had the darks in. She says, that looks awful. And I said, yeah, I guess it does, doesn't it? And then she was very excited to be there. But I put in the highlights and she was not really paying much attention, and she looks back when I did it. How'd you do that? I said, magic. That was a fun group. That was a fun time. Let's take the palette knife. Okay, big trees like this, right? Let's make some tree trunks. Van Dyke brown, titanium white. Let's throw a little bit of dark sienna in there too. Let's make some tree trunks. First, take the blade of your knife, place it down in the center of that tree, pull up, creates nice sharp tops to your trees. Make a couple false trees. Make it look like you've painted more trees than there actually are. Little roll of paint of that tree trunk color, and let's just put in a couple little indication of some trees back there. Little tree trunks. And then let's highlight. Let's do some highlighting. I'm going to take a fan brush, go into a small amount of liquid white, and then I'll go into cad yellow. A little bit more liquid white. One of Bob's #1 rules is a thin paint will stick to a thicker paint. So a little bit of liquid white, and I go into my cad yellow. And if that starts to turn kind of like an avocado lime green color, dull it down with a little bit of Van Dyke brown. I hope dull it down. Maybe even a little bit of that dark mountain mix will give you more of a natural green. Let's come up here and highlight these happy trees. Just the corner of the brush. And I'm not going to highlight my entire tree. And on your little phone screen, I'm not even sure if these highlights will show up much for you. If you ever have the privilege of seeing a Bob Ross painting in person, look at his trees. Look at his trees, because Bob kept his trees very, very dark. He usually didn't go overboard with his highlights on these trees. Bob liked his evergreen trees nice and dark. So don't over highlight. See, I didn't highlight the entire tree. I left a lot of that dark showing through. All right, let's do something with this blob of dark. First thing I want to do, let's take a little palette knife. Van Dyke brown, just straight brown. Pull it out flat. Place your blade down, cut across, just like we did with the mountain earlier. Maybe there's a little path. Just a little path that goes back over yonder, as Bill Alexander would say. Over yonder. Yonder the hills. I can't do a German accent. Little path. Goes right back there. Now, it might be kind of hard to see right now, but when we take some white with that tree trunk color, dark sienna, titanium white, Van Dyke brown, we'll put a little bit of that highlight color on there, and it will make those rocks, that little path, jump out at you. See there? See there how that works? There, now you can see them. Tip of the knife, scratch in through these little darks, create little sticks and twigs, all kinds of happy things. All right, let's highlight those bushes. Let's take a 1-inch brush, dip it into liquid white, go into a little cad yellow, maybe a little Indian yellow, a little bit more liquid white. It takes just a little bit of practice to kind of get a feel for the consistency of your paints. Pull it in one direction, handle straight up in the air, and a lot of paint in that brush. Lots of paint in the brush. If you load this brush right, see there on my palette how you can kind of see the little indication of a bush, little bush texture. That's how you know you've kind of loaded that brush right. Good amount of paint. If you can see the amount of paint in that brush. Ooh, lots of paint. And if you've loaded this brush correctly, you might get a little rounded edge. That rounded edge goes up towards the ceiling. If you've watched Bob a lot, like me, this will look familiar. Rounded edge towards the top. Let's make a bush. Very light. I'll push into the canvas. And there is a happy little bush. A little bit more liquid white. Again, if you start to run into a kind of an avocado color, put a little bit of Van Dyke brown into it. That will kind of dull it down so it's not so saturated looking. And these are just little push-up bushes. Does not take a lot of pressure. More paint, less pressure. I believe that was a saying that a certified instructor coined. I believe it was Bernie. I'm not 100% sure. If Nick and Ada are watching this video, I'm sorry if I got that wrong. You can correct me. But I think you guys said it was Bernie who said more paint, less pressure. And I think what he meant by that is more paint in the brush and a light pressure. It looks like I'm taking a running leap and cramming the brush into the canvas, but I'm really not. It's just a light pressure, just enough to get that paint to kind of fall off the bristles. Just enough paint, or just enough pressure to get that paint to just kind of fall off the bristles for you. But I'm not cramming my brush into the canvas by any means. If you cram your brush into the canvas, you're going to get big nasty blobs, and it's not gonna have that beautiful bush texture or bush appearance. It's just, well, it's going to look like a nasty blob. Which in that case, if you get a nasty blob, take your palette knife, zip it right off, put your darks back in, and you're good to go. That easy. You can fix anything that happens here, I promise. It takes a little bit of practice to kind of find the knowledge to do it, or gain the knowledge to do it. But you really can fix anything here. Anything that happens, you can fix it. That gives us some beautiful little bushes. You can go back and reinstate some of your sticks and twigs. And there you go. You got a beautiful, beautiful little painting. We got clouds, we got mountains, and we got trees. Oh boy, do we got them. Let's take a script liner brush. I got a jar of, or a little bucket of paint thinner over here. Script liner brush. Let's first go into a little bit of Van Dyke Brown. Turn that script liner brush through your fingers as you roll it through the paint. Maybe there's a little stick. Little happy guy that lives right there. Maybe he's got a buddy right here. There we are. Script liner brush, paint thinner, phthalo blue. Let's go ahead and sign it down here in the corner. I hope you enjoyed this painting project. I hope you try it for yourself. Get you some good practice doing the clouds, the mountains, and the trees. All right, take care. Take care.